Our second lesson this morning is from Matthew chapter 16, verses 21 through 28. From that time on, Jesus began to explain to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things at the hands of the elders, chief priests, and teachers of the law, and that he must be killed and on the third day be raised to life. Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. "Never, Lord," he said, "this shall never happen to you." Jesus turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me. You do not have in mind the things of God, but the things of men." Then Jesus said to his disciples, "If anyone would come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for me will find it. What good will it be for a person if he gains the whole world yet forfeits his soul? Or what can a person give in exchange for his soul? For the Son of Man is going to come in his Father's glory with angels, and then he will reward each person according to what he has done. I tell you the truth, some who are standing here will not taste death before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom." The power of a person. Ever wonder why there are so many lists of names in the Bible? Those genealogies have to be some of the most boring parts of the whole book. But they do remind us of how important one person can be. If you take one person out of a family line, everyone else after them disappears. One choice can have eternal consequences. Look at some of the people listed in Jesus' family line. We'll start with Noah. God said, "Noah, a flood's coming. Build yourself a boat." But boats are expensive, especially an ark. And building one in the middle of dry land makes you look like an idiot to your neighbors. Noah could have ignored God, but he chose to pick up his hammer and start building. And he saved his family, including all their animals. The power of a person. Were it not for Noah, there never would have been a Boaz to marry Ruth. Ruth was a foreign woman whose Israelite husband had died. Now she could have stayed in her own land, her own town, worshiping her pagan gods. It would have been easier. But instead, she chose to look after her mother-in-law. Her mother-in-law. And she moved to Israel with her and worshiped God instead. By her choice, she saved the Boaz family line, and she gave birth to Jesse. The power of a person. Jesse then was the father of David. And David could have stayed home watching the sheep. Instead, he chose to pick up 5 rocks and a sling and face a giant warrior. And he saved his country. Years would go by and troubles would fall upon David's family until we hear of a poor carpenter from the line of David who is engaged to a young woman named Mary. When Mary is found to be pregnant, but not by him, Joseph could have quietly divorced her as he had planned, but he chose to pick up a promise given by God that this child was conceived by the Holy Spirit and would save his people from their sins. Joseph could have rejected Mary, even insisted on an abortion or demanded that she be executed for adultery, but he chose to listen to God. He chose to pick up that promise, and it saved his marriage. And that, of course, led to Jesus, who picked up the cross. The greatest thing any person ever did was when Jesus picked up his cross. He could have rejected the suffering. He could have spared himself the pain. He knew it was coming. We just read about that in Matthew 16. He could have said, "No way," and called down legions of angels to protect him. But instead, he chose to pick up his cross and die so that we might live. He gave his life so that we might be forgiven, made new or restored, given hope, an eternal hope. The fate of the whole world hung on that cross. Jesus chose to go there for you and me, and he saved the world. That's the power of a person. To a messed up, falling apart world, God didn't send a program, a plan, a legion of angels, or a self-help book. God sent a person. God came in person in Jesus Christ. And that person chose the cross, and it changed the world. Now we live in hope and not in despair. Now we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us, as the Bible promises. Now, no matter how dark the night or how deep the valley, we have a friend who walks that valley with us and even carries us when we can walk no more. I've always liked that poem, Footprints in the Sand. I know it's been used so much that it's kind of become cliche, but it's still true. The one who picked up the cross carries us as well. Remember how it goes? It says, one night I had a dream. I dreamed I was walking along the beach with the Lord, and across the sky flashed scenes from my life. For each scene, I noticed two sets of footprints, one belonging to me and the other to the Lord. When the last scene of my life flashed before me, I looked back at the footprints in the sand. I noticed that at many times along the path of my life, there was only one set of footprints. I also noticed that it happened at the very lowest and saddest times in my life. This really bothered me, and I questioned the Lord about it. Lord, you said that once I decided to follow you, you would walk with me all the way. But I've noticed that during the most troublesome times in my life, there was only one set of footprints. I don't understand why in times when I needed you the most, you should leave me. And the Lord replied, my precious, precious child, I love you and I would never leave you. During your times of trial and suffering, when you saw only one set of footprints, it was then that I carried you. I believe that's true. I believe it. The Lord carries us. But there's something in the pictures that usually go with this poem that I've also noticed. They either have one set of footprints or they have two sets of footprints, but never in the pictures have I ever seen the footprint of the cross. Never have I seen the drag marks of the cross in the sand. And if those footprints are supposed to represent me and Jesus and our walk together through life, where are the crosses? Jesus took up his cross, and he said to us, take up your cross and follow me. So where are the marks of the cross left in the sand? Because we do have crosses to pick up. And I'm not talking about mere problems. Last summer when I broke my leg, that was a problem. But it wasn't a cross. I didn't choose it. And a cross is something you choose to carry. You may not want to carry it, but you choose to carry it for the sake of Jesus Christ. It may be the ridicule that you bear for choosing what Jesus wants rather than what your friends want. It might be the burden that you pick up when you choose to love, especially that unlovable neighbor, whoever it might be. Ignoring them would be easier, but you follow the example of Christ, and you bear the weight of loving. You pick up that cross. Or it might be what you sacrifice for the sake of bringing the grace of Jesus Christ to other people. Waking up at 3 a.m. to pray, as some of you have done this morning. Or maybe it's showing up at church on a Sunday to worship, to teach Sunday school, or to sing in a choir. And of course, what we put in the offering plate can also be a sacrifice too. Maybe it's the hardest sacrifice of all. I know that as soon as I mention